And one word changes absolutely everything, right? Changing it from replace to repair.
I literally was
Those are
going to say that.
like two totally different things, two totally different outcomes. So if you want it replaced, you say replaced. If you want it repaired and you're okay with that, it's repaired. Yeah, I can't intertwine those two because those meanings are two totally different things. Drives me.
Welcome to the Leading Lane podcast for real estate pros by real estate pros with your hosts, Ashley Frederick and Stephen Birch. If you're looking for an honest, authentic, and raw perspective, you found it.
All right, welcome to the Leading Lane podcast. I don't know if it's just because here recently I've been more in transactions and files and compliance side of things, and it's always kind of interesting and fun when you look at it from a high level view and multiple different transactions. How much of a stickler on certain things people think that you are, but in reality, they really are big, issues and things that you want to make sure that you're looking out for. I think sometimes on an agent level in a transaction, you're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. But then when you have, 20 some agents or how many other agents underneath you and each person saying it's not that big of a deal over and over, there's a lot of not that big of a deals that are going on. So, um, I don't know if you ever get the comments, Ashley, that why are you so particular about, how certain forms are or deadlines or these different things. But what do you think that people miss, or why is it that we look at it as a requirement and a standard and others just not that big of a deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes with time for one, and experience. But I think, I mean, a lot of agents are really lucky that they haven't had a lawsuit filed, a complaint
Mm,
filed, those types of things. So I think that maybe until it like hits someone, do they actually understand that, oh, like
right.
that one dotted I might have prevented this buyer from selling this sewer or some sewer seller. So I think that I think that people are just so focused on like the moment at hand instead of
Mhm.
what happens 30 days from now, what happens a year after the transaction. Every state is different, but there's, statutes of time that something could come up, typically 2 years later, and like you could still be liable for it. I go back to I say like I like to operate from a center of excellence, and with that, then that comes compliance. And so, I mean, and I get it when I was an agent, like I was, more focused on like that one transaction and, what's going on. But I think once you step into the broker role, you now have to look at like a broader scope of like, how could this be misinterpreted,
Mhm.
or how could this not be in someone's best interest? So I think that for agents practicing that aren't, in day-to-day charge, like it's a ability to have to step back and just think like, what could go wrong? And I hate to have to think that way, but I think we live in a sue happy world. I mean, I
Yep.
hear every day like I'm going to sue someone, and then right, I normally can talk people off a ledge because, like, let's be honest, 9 times out of 10, it's not worth it.
Right.
But or it's a misunderstanding, or it can be fixed in some fashion. So, I think we have like the legal hotline, and that's the other thing. I like to read the legal hotline. I like to see like
Mhm.
what people don't understand. I like to see what other agents have gotten like complaints filed against. Sometimes blows my mind, like what they may or may not have done. But there's just so many things now that are by the book that can be compliance, it can be fair housing, ethics, all those types of things that we really have to start to think in the bigger picture, just instead of like the one transaction that we're on or the one person that we're dealing with.
Right. I mean, there's so many different levels of compliance. You have your state laws, you have your ethics, like you said. I mean, there's all of it stacked together, and I think that people only look at the contract aspect of things, thinking that it's black white. So that's all it is. I when I got in real estate, I thought it's all black white. This is what the contract says. I think it's like the most gray, blue, world out there because you have no
Purple.
clue which way it's going to go. And I think when you only hyper focus on, just what the contract says or what you think it says and or your interpretation of it, you have your blinders on to everything else that may be affecting what is actually going on. Um, I don't know about you, but like these deadlines and people missing it. When I was an agent, I felt that agents, co-oping agents, missed deadlines all the time. Don't get me wrong, I've
Okay.
missed deadlines. I've missed plenty of deadlines when in learning and experience and dropping the ball. Um, but I never wanted to be that guy in a real estate transaction. And that's not what I want my real estate company to be represented by. And I don't want people to know us by missing deadlines and dropping the ball. Like it's all about communication. So figuring out a system and a process to make sure that you're hitting those different marks. But I distinctly remember when one of my deals very early on, I didn't pull or grab the earnest money from the buyer when they were signing the offer. I was like, oh, just bring it by later on. Not a big deal. Yeah. We got the under contract. I forgot. Buyer forgot. I didn't follow it. Right. And remind you, like my grandma was my broker at the time. And man, did she light me up, left down, I mean, all the way freaking around on everything. It was absolutely wild. So I was like, yeah, that's never going to happen again. I'm not going to get scolded. So that's ingrained in my brain now. So I just think yeah, it's not the big deal. Like we can figure it out with an amendment or an addendum, whatever. But really, it is. I think it's kind of a black eye on how it looks and how, from all sides, all aspects of the transaction.
I think, yeah, you make a good point as far as like I can look at it as far as like a damaged reputation or
Hmm.
lost trust. Like it's as simple as like misstating a price on a Facebook post, right? Like
Yeah.
it happens. We're all, you know, um, make mistakes, but same thing, it might make the seller think that you like I can't even trust them to write the right price down or do the right address. Like I think I saw because we have a lot of non-local lenders or agents. It was a listing here, and then like they said located in the heart of X, like the city that they live in, which is like
Right.
45 minutes from here. So I was like, how would you feel if you were the seller and saw that? Um, I think too, like where it becomes different with an agent is like uh, an agent will just see like one file at a time, where like we as the
Mm-hmm.
brokers see 25 files, at a time. Where, again, it's like one system where I'm thinking about always like risk reduction. Like what can we do
Mm-hmm.
to reduce risk? And unfortunately, that comes with additional paperwork, additional
Mm-hmm.
signatures, additional education. But I think all it takes is like one time for someone to have like a oh shit moment, and then they're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
wait, that's why we do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that it's important too that we as brokers explain that more to the agents, as far as like why is this form, like why did I decide to implement this form? Why do I want
Mm-hmm.
this checked? Like I remember when people started not doing home inspections, which let's be honest, that was like a rare occasion before
Mm-hmm.
COVID. And then in COVID, everybody thought that that was cat's meow. And then, right, like 2 or 3 years later, you'd hear about like they had something happen in the house, or then they went to sell and that person had an inspection, and we weren't using like a um, acknowledgement of risk, if you will, for not
Mm-hmm.
having a home inspection. And then I mean, this goes back to education. Like I think I read something in Inman about somebody that sued by not having the inspection done, and that they recommended that there was a waiver of sorts that they signed. So sure enough, like I require it for all no inspection. There's a specific form that says that they understand the importance of an inspection. If they've chosen on their own not to have one, and they hold the office not liable. And so I mean, same thing. Like you just have to didn't think about it at the time. Like that's their choice. But like, where do we have them sign off that we didn't just not have that? So same thing. Like it's just right. Like one mistake can typically be fixable, but it's like when numerous things happen or there's a pattern, like that's where we as brokers have to step in and be like, oh, this does happen a lot or could happen a lot. What can we do to change that, or what practices can we do to change that?
Mm-hmm. the thing here too, like being able to, I mean, really, you're covering your ass, right? All the time. That's what we're doing is covering your ass, making sure we're doing it. And it's hard to be able to ensure that every single person underneath you is doing everything properly. But it does go back to that reinforcement and that education side of things. Even on the home warranty side of things, offering a home warranty, what happens? We've had multiple deals, but a buyer comes afterwards and I'm like, well, I was never offered a home warranty. And since you didn't offer the home warranty, that's, you need to pick it up. Or, I mean, there's just so many different scenarios that I can go through. It's just wild how people are, just throwing blame anywhere that they can. But also, it is our job to ensure that we are offering all of these things. It is our job to ensure that inspections we are offering, making sure that you offer a roof inspection, not just a whole home inspection. Like, there's so many different things that it's almost like creating a package for individuals to ensure that all the boxes are going to be checked. They're offered everything right up front. And then even giving them multiple different recommendations for said home inspectors, right? Like if you only give them one home inspector, one home warranty, and like that's putting, in my opinion, definitely at risk right there because you're not providing options. We just got back on the legal hotline talking about, agents can get paid through home warranty. Um, for lack of better terms, a kickback, right? Like I, I know that's not technically what it is, but that's what it is. Um,
What it
and
feels like.
so Yep. The legal hotline said, okay, cool. So if you offer them a home warranty and you didn't disclose something, something goes wrong later on, and you got paid on said home warranty that you sold them, and there's no other, competitors that you provided, what kind of liability now is on you because you're the one that placed them into that plan. And now it's no longer just the plan. Now it's going to be whatever the issues are going to arise. Like, I mean, it went down this whole trickle effect. So is the $75 really freaking worth it? No, like, don't do it, right? Like that, at least that's my opinion of don't do it. Um, you never know how all of this is going to come back later on and bite you in your ass. And it's all about the documentation to make sure that you are doing your due diligence and disclosing properly.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned like the home warranties, and we have an addendum to our offer that kind of lays out all of those things. And it's what I think the two biggest things in there are it asks for closing costs and it asks about home warranties.
Hmm.
So I actually had another broker, I would probably say a couple of years ago, and he called and he's like, why does your office always send that extra addendum even though you have everything marked as not applicable? And I was like, well, because how do I prove that they were offered to ask for a home warranty? How do I
Hmm.
prove that they were offered to ask the seller for closing costs? Otherwise, like,
Hmm.
I know for a fact that there are other agents that are not going over that form and didn't explain the options that they
Hmm.
could ask for closing costs or that they could ask for a home warranty. So I was like, that's my CYA of they looked at it, they did not ask for it. So, a year from now when the furnace goes out and they say, why didn't I have a chance to buy a home warranty? And I can go back and be like, well, because we checked not applicable, or now they've changed the form actually even better that says that they waive the option
Hmm.
to have a home warranty. So again, it's this mind shift of you have to just think like what could go wrong, unfortunately.
Worst case
I think
scenario.
yeah, I think the other way to look at it too is that um, if you do really present your offers clear with clarity, with precision, like technically that really should make the offer go smoother because there's less
Hmm.
gray area. I also think that for me personally, like I know agents that write sloppy offers and I know agents that write good offers.
Right.
Like when you have very similar offers, like, right, that's something you're going to consider when you're talking to your sellers. I've even had it with
Hmm.
sellers like where we had to counter back like things that were just missed, like the address was missed or like a check mark wasn't there. And then that makes them question if they can actually get the deal to the closing table if they can't fill out a contract correctly.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, in multiply that by how many transactions a year,
Hmm.
right? Like That's a freaking lot. And those are the types of things that keep me up at night for compliance, right? Like, I don't want that. And I think that that's why, we're so determined to bring value and make sure that we're educating our agents and talking about real life scenarios, right? Like we don't just gloss over it. We make sure that we have conversations. It's not to throw anybody under the bus or anything else like that. But how else is anybody else going to learn if we don't share those experiences? And there's things that every day I've never experienced and I learn, and sharing that constantly versus hoarding back that information. And that's why it's important to show up at the meetings, and important to be able to make sure you're catching up on the articles that are coming through and what is actually happening around the world versus just staying in your own little bubble.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about like sharing. Like I think I mentioned that we added like a brainstorming section to our office
Hmm.
meeting, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll specifically ask an agent that had an issue the week before that I'll ask them like, hey, can we bring this up in the meeting? And then we'll maybe talk about like, this is what happened. Like, what could we have done differently? What should we have done differently? But I also like it that the brainstorming section has been like, hey, I have this coming up and it doesn't quite feel right. Like, what would be the best way to do this? So making sure that
Uh,
those like lines of communication within the office and to the broker are open so that like you have enough confidence to be like, I'm not going to just swing it. I feel like
mhm.
this, I guess I always tell like, agents, like, if it gives you pause, then that's enough that you need to bring it to me and then we can
Correct.
talk through it.
If you're questioning, like if you are questioning, that means you need to bring it on up the chain and make sure that you're utilizing your resources so that you don't put yourself in a pickle. And I think one thing too that we've talked about multiple times is, agents saying, "Well, you're too busy, or you're really busy, and I don't want to bother you." Yeah, no, that's what I'm here for. And also, if you want to put our license on the line here, there goes everybody's, livelihood. So let's make sure that no matter how small or large it may be, bring it to my freaking attention. Don't hide behind that freaking computer and run away. Like, we need to handle this as professionals and move forward. Like, we all make mistakes. We're humans.
Yeah, I think that is important. Like I know you and I both use Blink, and that's another area where I think it's a good training resource. So someone might have a
Mm-hmm.
question there, and a lot of times I tell people like someone else might have that exact question, and maybe they're
Absolutely.
just afraid to ask, or they haven't thought to ask, or it might be 3 months from now and be like, oh, I feel like we talked about that. And then they can search this platform and be like, oh, yep. And there was the answer. And I've learned to try not to answer those questions right away on Blink because I like to try to
Mm-hmm.
see how other people will solve them. But then, like, if I see someone post something that's not quite right, I'll be like, great idea. But think about this,
Let's
right? And I
try
think it's really
this.
about trying to encourage people to think outside what they know to be black and white. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is the
Mm-hmm.
gray area? Okay, like that was your intention, but the way that you have it worded, could you see how it could be interpreted as this?
Mm-hmm. And one word changes absolutely everything, right? Changing it from replace to repair.
I literally was
Those are
going to say that.
like two totally different things, two totally different outcomes. So if you want it replaced, you say replaced. If you want it repaired and you're okay with that, it's repaired. Yeah, I can't intertwine those two because those meanings are two totally different things. Drives me crazy. So, well, I'm glad we're sticklers. I think that I know that we would not be where we are on building extremely successful businesses and brokerages if we were not following the rules and making sure compliance is definitely there, having higher standards. Because we know that in this industry too, there's a lot of people that don't have those standards. And it's time to elevate the bar and rise up and make the difference in this industry because we definitely need it.
Right. I think it makes all of our agents, better agents in the long run to continue to win listings, continue to win buyers, and protect the reputation that we've built.
Absolutely. Well, let's continue to slay the day and continue to be sticklers for the rest of the day.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure you guys tune into the next one. We appreciate you.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share with others. Stay connected for more genuine insights and strategies to boost your real estate career on Facebook or check out our website. We'll see you next time.